Welcome to episode 5, where I review all my physical CDs. I randomly determine them, whip it out of this case here, and then try to remember something about it. Try to review. So it's kind of like more of a memory test. Anyway, so I've randomly selected that it's going to be on the third row, item 10. So Black Sabbath's We Sold Our Soul for Rock and Roll. This is the best of collection from the 70s, so it's only a retrospective of their work up to, I guess, Sabotage. Yeah, so Sabotage was like their 5th album. I think Black Sabbath is a very misunderstood band, and I think they are badass. But I think it's very misunderstood. They're a very misunderstood group because they've got all that dark iconography, and they spawned all that heavy metal stuff. A lot of it bad, a lot of it very bad. That kind of but it's. I think they're judged based on the movement it spawned, partially, and also of a like crossed wires about what they were and what they were about. So first of all, what they are actually, what is correct? I mean, they have a lot of dark imagery, right? They've got that kind of horror movie style. They were actually inspired by a horror movie. They weren't getting a lot of attention, and they took the name of a horror movie at the time, Black Sabbath, and that became their new image. They do have that kind of stuff, and they deal with dark things in their lyrics. Not all the time, though. And they were doing tons of cocaine. Tons. And drinking and all that stuff. Here's my counter to those folks who write off Black Sabbath as just, some progenitors of a bullshit movement that just advocates suicide and all that stuff. I think there was a complaint against heavy metal that it advocated suicide at one point. Anyway, first of all, to address the drug issue, who wasn't doing tons of cocaine in the 70s? So let's throw that out. I mean, there's tons of bands, I'm sure, that you would naturally identify. If you're not a Black Sabbath fan, this is for you. If you are a Black Sabbath fan, I'm preaching to the choir. Anyway, so lots of bands were doing cocaine at the time. All the bands were doing cocaine at the time. So if you liked any band during the 70s, then you can't complain about that. Okay, moving on. The dark iconography. So yeah, how do you square that circle? It's kind of a weird metaphor. Anyway, they're talking about satanic things, but are they? So first of all, like I mentioned before, they weren't popular as a hard jazz band. Yes, Black Sabbath, before they were Black Sabbath, were a hard jazz and blues band called Earth. Earth! They were called Earth. And they were doing... there is a bootleg recording of Ozzy Osbourne and Black Sabbath, the original lineup, doing a cover of Blue Suede Shoes. Okay? That's what they were doing in the 60s. But they were getting nowhere with that. Nobody cared. They were not getting any gigs. They weren't getting much attention. They even painted Ozzy purple, blue, something, a color that was dark on the spectrum like that, to try to see if they could, get some notice. Nothing. Nobody cared. Nobody gave a crap. He was purple. So the lead guitarist, Tony Iommi, like I said, saw the movie Black Sabbath, which is an old horror movie. I haven't seen it. Apparently it was a movie that came out in Britain. And it was hugely popular at the time. People were going to see it. And he was like, whoa, people like being scared. That's like, people will pay to go see people go and get scared. And it was more of a business decision than anything else, which you may think is selling out, but, okay, you can't complain about both of them, but I'll address that in a minute. So, what do you do? Change your name to Black Sabbath. Just change it to the name of the movie that you saw that saw everyone getting popular. Whatever, do what you got to do. And they changed their image to be, kind of in line with kind of counterculture, but also critiquing of it. They were never hippies, or were they? So Black Sabbath appealed to the anti-hippie movement, right? They appealed to people who were disenfranchised with the kind of flower power stuff going on in the late 60s, early 70s. And as they gained popularity in the early 70s to mid 70s, and then spawned copycats or influenced other heavy metal bands that were then very much anti the hippie movement, and kind of a hardcore, almost conservative backlash against it. They kind of took things from the Black Sabbath mythos and kind of changed that image to things that it wasn't. Like, in reality, Black Sabbath was very much in line with the hippie movement of the time. The song Iron Man is, it's about a guy from space or something. He from the future, and he's trying to go back and help people, but they hate him because he's been horribly scarred. It's a very perfect metaphor for veterans of the Vietnam War. While that's not quite in line with the hippie movement, who have been against those people, like, categorically, it's still a lot more caring than you would think about in a band called Black Sabbath. War Pigs is a blatantly anti-war song. It is not a violence war. All wars are violence wars, except the dance war. So War Pigs is anti-war. It's condemning warmongers. It invokes the image of Satan, but it is a anti-war song. I'm looking through. Oh, yeah, Children of the Grave. Ooh, that's scary. I think it's an anti-war song. I'm trying to remember. Children of the Grave. Yeah, it's like kind of, I think it was an anti-war song. Cornucopia. It's not on that album, but that's a song I'm convinced that's a critique on consumerist culture. They were so hippy dippy in a lot of ways. They were being like, choosing war instead of love is a lyric. Like, they're using the horror movie themes as the enemy. They're using it because, of course, as a marketing tactic. That's true, but it's also always presented as the enemy. The viewer is never or listener. The viewer, yes, the listener is supposed to identify with the victims, not the horror. So, where a lot of the heavy metal that was spawned, the dark metal, that kind of stuff, it was flipped. Now the listener is supposed to identify with the satanic images, not as seen as the enemy, which is an important distinction, and it's an easy switch to make, and I guess it's subtle, but I think it's very important. That's what it is, man. It's good music too. Like, they're good musicians. They come up with good riffs, and there's good stuff on this stuff. Guys, if you don't like Black Sabbath, give it a shot. All right? Give it a shot. It's good. It's good. Really, their lyrics are lots of times no different than other bands that just didn't have as dark a sound. Like, it was mostly like the gloom and doom kind of, that churning, drudgy kind of stuff. But, I go back to shamanistic cultures. in shamanistic kind of tribal cultures, they would have like dark kind of whirling demonic seeming rituals, like where people would be up for days and kind of dancing crazy, and that wasn't to celebrate the evil, but to recognize darkness in ourselves, and to accept it and to purge it from everyday life, not to have it ruin us and take us over in our suppression of it, but to express it in a healthy manner. And I would say Black Sabbath is in that line, in that lineage, in that stuff. I mean, I don't think they would say that about themselves, but I would. So fuck them.